Those mech jocks are pretty full of themselves, are they not? Prancing around and claiming to be the best warriors in the history of mankind. Full of belief in the inherent superiority of their battle mechs. And who would disagree? Are these war machines not able to destroy city blocks and to annihilate complete villages? Yet those who can look past it know that these are no thing of consequence. There are other constructs that are the true icons of war. Creations able to destroy whole planets, to perform what is known as an exterminatus. Unrivaled avatars of destruction. Warships. They were the source of greatness for the first Star League, the dying curse of the second Star League, and the sword of Damocles hanging over the third Star League. Yes, the battle mechs have fought in far more skirmishes and maintained a deeper culture and mystique around them, but it were the warships that shaped the politics of the sphere in a far bigger extent. There are not that many of them left, but they do not need numbers to project power. A single one may even be more than enough. To fully appreciate the role they have played for the development of mankind, we will have to watch their history in full. From the first navy that went airborne, the era of expansion, Admiral McKenna, over the golden age of Star League, the abyss of the succession wars, to revival, and the recent times. A story of man's hubris and the humbling by his own hand. The very first warships were of course seafaring vessels. Bigger boats that brought warriors from one shore to another. The first historical reports about them are tied to the raids of the Sea People. These enigmatic collection of pirates and conquerors wreaked havoc upon the cultures of the late Bronze Age, around 1200 BC, and ushered in their own Dark Age. Over time, the warships would grow. Rows were replaced by sail. The number of decks increased. They gained rams and departments of marines. To increase their reach, they received catapults and later cannons. What started as bigger boats were now huge structures that needed the wood of complete forests to be built. It was the might of these warships that made the great colonial empires of Spain, Portugal, France, and Britain possible. With the Industrial Revolution, the evolution continued. Steam engines replaced the sail. The metal plates used to keep barnacles away first turned into armor and then replaced the wood altogether. The guns grew to humongous size. At the beginning of the 20th century, warships were mountains of steel, able to lay waste to everything in the radius of multiple kilometers. And here it is time for us to leave the shackles of the surface and rise above. In the few decades before, the aeronautic endeavors of many inventors had made progress, and the airship came into existence. The maritime terminology was no longer bound to the sea. And then Imperial Germany formed the very first flying branch of the military. It was only natural to maintain the old traditions. Huge flying structures are airships, they form fleets, and are a kind of navy. Soon the original airships disappeared from the skies, and especially from military service. Planes would be the air forces of the following decades and centuries. However, the idea of a flying navy already had entered the collective imagination and mind of mankind. It was said that there would be a return. The first centuries of space travel were not marred by war and conflict. The Terran Space Navy was established in 2120, following the founding of the first colony on New Earth in 2116. To ensure the protection and maintenance of interstellar colonies, the Terran Alliance allocated funds in 2120 for the construction of 6 military jump ships over the next 10 years. These vessels were designated to serve as first responders to any future interstellar emergencies. The first ship of the Terran Space Navy, the TAS Charger, was completed in 2122 and was built as the popular Aquila-class design. No one was anticipating space combat, and the barely armored and armed ship would almost exclusively serve as transport. In 2128, the colony ship Liberator, carrying hundreds of volunteers from Spain and South America, was purchased by the Bolivar Foundation. On April 26, 2128, the Liberator attempted a hyperjump and disappeared without a trace. This incident led to the colonization procedure referendum, which mandated that all colonist ships had to be escorted by the Terran Space Navy. The cradle of civilization was to stay the driving force in the colonization of the sphere and would not give up its monopoly on travel and transportation. Even the brutal Outer Reaches Rebellion, 2236 to 2237, that led to the abandonment of most colonies, was not a threat for the unarmed spaceship. But it marked the point that ended the unified governance of all humans under a single state. Mankind would fracture again to several entities and different governments. And that meant that war was again looming. The birth of a spacefaring war fleet, the Blackwater Navy, and the creation of the first warship is closely tied to the man who transformed the old and corrupt Terran Alliance into the driven and glorious Terran Hegemony. James McKenna, Fleet Admiral of the Alliance Navy. James McKenna, born on Terra in the Canadian wilderness of the Yukon Territories, was recruited by the Alliance Global Militia, AGM. Although he had not initially considered a prolonged military career, he reconsidered after being awarded a scholarship to Annapolis Naval Academy. Unwilling to pass on this opportunity for deeper and more thorough education, he stayed. After graduating with honors, McKenna's early career in the Alliance Navy was marked by a pattern of recognition for his exceptional skills and demotions for poor behavior over his first 10 years of service. Eventually, he stabilized his conduct and worked to improve his reputation, maintaining his willingness to challenge the status quo. In 2295, McKenna achieved the rank of Fleet Admiral of the Alliance Navy. He initiated an ambitious plan to strengthen the Navy, which at the time was still primarily used for just transporting Alliance ground troops. Anticipating the end of the Alliance dominance as the sole interstellar nation, McKenna aimed to prepare his nation for a future full of challenges by developing a formidable naval force. This led to the creation of the first true combat jump ships, known as warships. By 2314, McKenna's plan had resulted in the production of the TAS Dreadnought and its 6 sister ships, along with other warships from the shipyards of Mars, Venus, and Terra. Despite criticism for the high cost and perceived lack of immediate threats, Kenna defended his vision. In a 2313 interview, he explained his motivations and his desire to see the ships he had built to serve the Alliance when needed, despite the problems posed by the increasingly unstable regime that governed Terra. What exactly is a warship? In essence, warships are super large combat jump ships. Being the largest starships ever constructed, they are built at orbital docks and cannot land or take off from a planet. As a layperson, you may believe that they are distinguished by their powerful maneuver drives, which provide them with greater mobility compared to a typical jump ship. These drives allow warships to move through space, similarly to dropships, with a capability for combat maneuvers and accelerations far exceeding 1G. However, the truth happens to be far simpler. The defining feature of warships is their compact KF drive. This expensive component has half the mass of the similar powerful regular KF drive, but offers greater structural integrity, making it perfect for combat situations. Any ship equipped with a compact KF drive will always be classified as a warship, even if it serves a support role. In contrast, jump ships with regular, civilian KF drive are never considered warships. Quite often warships are equipped with hardpoints to carry dropships, making full use of their nature as jump-capable ships, while also enhancing their cargo capacity and combat capabilities. However, just like with their civilian brethren, these hardpoints cannot be used for maneuvering beyond station keeping while dropships are attached, as their docking collars are not designed to withstand such stress. The maximum size for warships is 2.5 million tons, which is the largest mass for which a compact KF drive can be constructed. The first designated warship, in the sense of jump-capable combat vessels, were the Dreadnought class, with a TAS Dreadnought launched by the Terran Alliance in 2300. In 2310, the two-party system between the expansionists and the liberals was broken when the People's Independence Party, PRP, was established within the Terran Alliance, positioning itself as the voice of the forgotten. The party swiftly gained a large following among the previously apathetic population by staging elaborate rallies, which garnered significant attention and monetary support. The PRP was led by Grant Zolli, the bastard child of a Kenyan mother and a New Zealander father. Growing up in the savage urban slums of New Zealand, Zolli's early life was marked by struggle. During a prison sentence for theft, he discovered his talent for science, history, and navigating bureaucratic rules. Post-prison, Zolli entered politics with a small local party, rapidly advancing to becoming Prime Minister of New Zealand and the head of a powerful political machine. His ambitions extended to interplanetary politics, where he aimed to amass wealth through the PIP. By 2310, the PIP had become a major political force, and Zolli found himself courted by both major political parties of the alliance for support in the parliamentary elections of 2314. He delayed committing to either party, hoping to increase their offers of power and money. In August 2314, Zolli initially pledged support to the expansionists, but switched alliance to the liberals in September. On September 5th, 2314, Zolli was found dead in his New Zealand mansion. His death triggered immediate turmoil, with the liberal and expansionist parties accusing each other of a crime. Zealous PIP supporters initiated a wave of assassination against both parties. The Terran Parliament declared martial law, and the Alliance Global Militia was deployed to quell the rebellion in New Zealand. The liberals produced false evidence accusing the expansionists of Zolli's murder, further inflaming tensions. On September 30th, liberal guards attacked the expansionist headquarters in Zurich, leading to violent retaliations and widespread conflict. Both parties escalated the violence by deploying loyal soldiers, resulting in battles across the globe and significant civilian casualties. While some AGM units took side, most remained neutral. Admiral James McKenna, concerned about the escalating violence, requested the AGM's ground forces to intervene, leading to notable battles such as the Battle of Zurich and the Battle of Bangkok. McKenna then ordered the Navy's major warships and marine troop carriers to rendezvous with his fleet orbiting Mars. Attention all AGM members currently participating in the barbarities. Cease all hostile actions and return to your barracks, or I will bombard you into oblivion. Communique from Admiral James McKenna to the AGM ground forces fighting on Terra, June 2nd, 2315. The situation peaked on June 2nd when a series of explosions destroyed strand rock in the North Sea and another island near Australia, causing global shock and temporarily halting the fighting. This dramatic turn of events underscored the severity of the Zoli affair and its impact on the stability of the Terran alliance. Then, a message from Admiral James McKenna was broadcasted worldwide. To the men and women of humanity's cradle, attention. This is Fleet Admiral James McKenna on board the warship Dreadnought. The destruction of the islands near Scotland and Australia was accomplished by the combined fleets of the Alliance Global Navy. I gave the order to open fire, and I am just as ready to give similar orders should anyone on Terra attempt to jam my message to its people. You have all been suffering through a bitter war. Many, mostly the innocent, have been injured or lost everything they own in the fighting. Even the fortunate few who have gone unscathed thus far must have some friend or loved one who has suffered. Terra has been a dark place these past few weeks, and little hope of getting brighter. As you know, what is the purpose of this suffering? Do you believe that this war is a true and honorable one that will make your lives any better? Do you honestly believe that if one side or the other wins, it will benefit you? It is my view that all of us have been duped by the lies and deceits of a few wily politicians. They have led you to believe that this war will somehow end your and the Alliance problems. Once and for all. They lie. They struggle for personal power, and not for your benefit. It is time for change. The government is corrupt and must go. We must bring back the voice of the people so that it may be heard. I propose the founding of a new government to replace the Alliance. A strong government, responsive to its people, unburdened by constant and useless elections. A strong government that will re-establish Terra as a proper center of humanity. Fellow humans, it is time that we cease to behave in the violent ways of Homo sapiens and begin to behave in the ways of Homo stellaris, men and women of the stars. Those who share this view need only lay down their weapons and return home to await further messages. Those who do not agree to a change had best be warned. I intend to hunt every last one of you and feed you to the public that has been so badly abused. Admiral McKenna's proclamation had a profound impact globally. Almost every militia unit engaged in the conflict ceased fighting and returned to their barracks. In numerous cities, citizens took to the streets in support of Admiral McKenna and his call for a new order. As promised by McKenna, the remaining officers of the Liberal and Expansionist parties were handed over to local authorities. Although these captives might have hoped for eventual release, McKenna's assumptions about the public sentiments were accurate. Most former leaders were imprisoned for long terms, 20 were executed and only 5 were freed. In the aftermath of the Alliance's sudden collapse, the Admiral, still aboard his warship, issued the Hegemony Charter. This document outlined a vision for what he described as a fair but responsive government, free of all the vices and faults of the previous administration. The hegemony, as McKenna envisioned it, would dissolve the Alliance bureaucracy and establish a new class of officials known as planetary governors. These governors would be appointed to rule in the name of the hegemony. ultimate authority would reside with a single head of state chosen, but not ruled by the people, suggesting a status just below that of a monarch. Contrary to some accounts, McKenna did not declare himself the leader of a new Terran hegemony. He was elected as the hegemony's first Director General and Lord Protector in February 2316. Available evidence suggests that the election was fair, despite the stipulation that McKenna would rule until his death or voluntary retirement. The reason the colonies broke from Terra was that the previous government treated them with either indifference or outright contempt. Now, things are different, and there is no longer any reason for them to remain out there in the cold. Director General James McKenna, as quoted in The First Lord Protector by Gregory Dunn, HBJ Interplanetary Press, 2345. Director General James McKenna embarked on a mission to ensure that all former Alliance worlds became part of his new hegemony. While most planets joined willingly, about a dozen required more persuasive methods, including political pressure and, in some cases, like Cav and Altair, military force. Once McKenna secured the space close to home, he turned his attention to worlds outside the hegemony's border. He used a combination of incentives and threats, including political propaganda and a flood of cheap consumer goods, hoping to create an economic dependence on Terra. Although these tactics had some initial success, most worlds, accustomed to Terra's previously indifferent behavior, prefer to remain independent. Recognizing the potential threat, some of these worlds banded together. Others allied with established realms, and many began to arm themselves in preparation for a possible conflict. McKenna's call for a united humanity and his promise to punish those who sought independence made it clear that he would not accept refusal. In March 2316, he set out with a large fleet of warships to subdue the wealthy independent worlds of Quentin, Arai, and Helen. These planets had recently formed a defensive pact, but knew they had little chance against McKenna's Blackwater Navy. They hastily converted cargo and messenger ships into makeshift battleships and strengthened their ground defense with militia and volunteers. But against the merciless firepower of the Hegemony Armed Forces, HAF, they were hopeless. The battles were intense and bitter, but they provided valuable lessons for future campaigns. The HAF developed a standard approach to bring worlds into compliance, which began with gathering intelligence on the target planets. Once the plan was devised, the necessary troops were assembled and transported to the combat zone. The initial phase involved securing the system's jump points with large warships to ensure safe passage for the troop-carrying jump ships. Director General McKenna often led these efforts personally, commanding from his battlecruiser, the Black Lion. After securing the jump points, reconnaissance patrols were conducted to gather more information about the target world. These patrols, escorted again by warships, mapped the planet and potential opposition from local populations. With the intelligence gathered, the HAF commanders planned and executed the invasion. Troop ships, escorted by warships, would move into orbit and deploy dropships targeting major cities, industrial centers, and water sources. Control over these vital areas usually forced the planetary governments to surrender, recognizing the futility of further resistance. Through these campaigns of persuasion, McKenna extended the hegemony to include over 40 worlds. The first campaign, beginning with Quentin, Arai, and Helen, concluded with the capture of Tawny in 2317. The second major campaign, launched in 2320, captured terra firma and eventually extended to distant Nanking. If you paid attention, you will have recognized how often warships were mentioned in the description. They were the most important part of the military strategy of this time and would remain a main pillar of the hegemony's power. The earliest two warships were all created under the influence or the reign of James McKenna. Of course, their technology was primitive compared to later models, but they were still a huge leap of innovation. The Dreadnought-class battleship, launched in 2300, was the first true warship produced and initially regarded as the personal project of Admiral James McKenna. The TAS Dreadnought was the first of 7 ships in this class and served as his flagship until he transferred his command to the Black Line. The Dreadnought class served for over 300 years, officially retiring in 2602. During its service, no Dreadnought was lost in combat. However, 2 were lost due to navigational accidents during the Age of War, and a third one was scrapped following a series of engineering mishaps. The Dart-class light cruiser was introduced in 2305 to meet the Terran Alliance Naval Command's need for a versatile combat vessel that could also function as an explorer and cargo ship. The Terran Space Navy approved the design, which featured the capacity for independent deployments, which means large fuel tanks and cargo bays, as well as the ability to carry the largest dropships. The Dart class served the Terran Alliance and Terran Hegemony for nearly 200 years before being replaced by the Avatar-class cruiser. The Bonaventure-class corvette played a crucial role in reconsolidating the Terran Hegemony following the McKenna coup. Among its contemporaries, the Bonaventure-class was noted for having one of the most sophisticated sensor suits ever designed. The Vigilant-class corvette, introduced in 2320, was designed for reconnaissance and surveillance. It was frequently deployed in triads alongside Bonaventure-class corvettes and remote surveillance satellites. These formations, known for their naughty picture runs, involved 4 corvette squadrons of Bonaventure and Vigilants sweeping the prospective targets before hegemony armed forces assaulted. Introduced in 2325, the cruiser-class cruiser played a prominent role in McKenna's campaigns of persuasion until 2405. Despite improved relations between the hegemony and the various pacts and confederations around it, there were still quite a few unaffiliated worlds that Director General McKenna considered fair game. In 2335, he launched his third and last major offensive to seize certain worlds that he considered vital to the hegemony's continued growth. Most of these planets lay toward the Federation of Sky, in what would one day be the Lyran Commonwealth. 2 worlds, Syrma and Galatea, became the focus of McKenna's plans. Drawing on hard-won lessons from previous campaigns, our glorious troops launched a successful offensive. With superior training and equipment, they swiftly captured Danibola, Milton, Alioth, Mizar, and Lyons. Morale was high among our strike forces, bolstered by the charismatic and intelligent leadership of Admiral Conrad McKenna, the son and heir of our beloved Director General. He had command over a massive Blackwater Navy, numbering over 300 warships. As we advanced towards Galatea, a crucial objective, Admiral McKenna made a bold decision to forego the usual reconnaissance missions, believing the peaceful, technological backward inhabitants would offer little resistance. Contrary to expectations, the Galateans fiercely defended their planet with low-tech weapons and intimate knowledge of the terrain, leading to significant casualties. This miscalculation caused some commanders to question Admiral McKenna's judgment. However, true to McKenna's legacy, Conrad stood firm, maintaining high morale among our Navy High Command and troops. After a year-long battle, Galatea was subdued, setting the stage for the invasion of Syrma, which began on July 23rd, 2338. In a strategic move, Admiral McKenna planned for troopships and cargo vessels to jump simultaneously with warships, aiming for a swift takeover. He assumed Syrma, populated by similar anti-tech colonists, would pose no significant threat. However, unbeknownst to us, Syrma had secured a secret deal with a Federation of Sky, which deviously planted mines and sleeper missiles at key jump points. When our ships materialized, many were destroyed by them. The larger warships withstood the onslaught, but smaller troopships and cargo vessels suffered heavy losses. Only 2 of the 29 troopships survived, severely hindering our invasion capabilities. Despite this, Admiral McKenna pressed forward with a second wave, leading to further losses. Amidst the chaos, the Admiral's battleship remained unscathed. Misguidedly, he blamed Vice Admiral Harris Cather for the disaster, convening a court-martial amongst the wreckage. The trial, seen by many as unfair, stirred mutinous sentiment among the surviving crews. But in a dramatic intervention, Director General James McKenna himself arrived aboard the fierce Black Lion. Demonstrating true leadership and humility, he apologized to the survivors and stripped his son of all ranks. He ordered the fleet to return to Terra, ensuring that the values and integrity of the hegemony remained intact. Despite the tragic losses, we must recognize the strength and resolve shown by our leadership. Director General McKenna's swift action and accountability reaffirm our commitment to justice and unity. As we regroup and learn from this experience, the hegemony remains steadfast in its mission to unite humanity under fair and prosperous government. Impartial Observer, Terra, 2338. After these terrible and embarrassing events, it was clear that the days of House McKenna were over. Conrad McKenna was utterly disgraced and would spend the rest of his life in his London townhouse, in a jungle of houseplants and with an entourage of 50 cats. Director General James McKenna decided to reduce the pressure against him and his son by stepping down from his office. However, he died just a few days later, leaving the question of succession completely open. In the following election, a relative of McKenna would prevail, Michael Cameron. With him, the reign of his house started, and it would remain in power until the fall of the hegemony. The many intrigues, scandals, and political maneuvers of this family of debauched Scottish nobles would be worthy of a lecture on its own. But we are here for the history of warships, which cannot be explained without the Camerons. As we have seen, the Blackwater Navy was a major factor in the establishment of a Terran hegemony, and the Camerons would always continue to have a lot of support and interest regarding the warships. A fact that was not changed by the creation of the Star League. The central location of a Terran hegemony within the innersphere necessitated robust transportation and space combat capabilities. Maintaining a powerful navy was a crucial objective for the rulers of Terra. The hegemony benefited from several key advantages. It possessed the oldest and most developed colonies, was technologically advanced, and had the highest production capacity. These factors made the construction of a large and formidable navy feasible, despite the complexity and expense involved. The construction of warships required orbital factories, positioned either around resource-rich planets or at the star's jump point. These factories were heavily protected by aerospace fighters and warships. Key facilities included Daily Warships, Capella, Dickirk Aerospace, Graham 4, Mitchell Vehicles, Graham 4, Thomson Shipyards, Kate, Nicholas Spacecraft, New Earth, Blue Nose Clipper Ships, Mars, Boeing Interstellar, Terra, Detron Heavy Industries, Terra, Crestus Ship Construction, Terra. The Star League Navy operated more than 15,000 warships jump ships, and dropships, supported by over 500 orbiting naval bases. Each base featured a vast array of shipyards, moorings, and housing for sailors. Typically, an airspace wing and 2 destroyers defended each base. During heightened tensions, a cruiser was added. Warships operated in various squadrons, each designed for specific roles. Line squadrons. These primary offensive formations comprised 3 or 4 battleships and/or carriers, supported by cruisers and frigates, offering substantial offensive power and resilience. Hunter squadrons. Designed for speed and firepower to chase down fleeing vessels, these squadrons were built around battlecruisers and cruisers, occasionally incorporating lighter ships. Interdiction squadrons. Focused on containment rather than pursuit, these squadrons featured a mix of light corvettes, heavy cruisers, and numerous fighters and assault dropships. Fire support squadrons. Attached to army formations, typically a corps or division, these squadrons achieved space superiority and provided orbital bombardment, with a half-dozen cruisers and frigates each. Escort squadrons. Comprised of cruisers and frigates, these squadrons balanced defense, offense, and maneuverability to protect other vessels. Reconnaissance squadrons. Serving primarily as intelligence gatherers and pickets in battle, these squadrons included lightweight, fast ships such as corvettes and destroyers, with occasional cruisers. Transport squadrons. Dedicated to moving ground forces, these squadrons contained dropships, jump ships, and warships like destroyers, along with assault dropships and fighters for protection. Science survey squadrons. Aimed at expanding knowledge and discovering new worlds, these squadrons consist of 1 to a dozen vessels, typically conventional dropships and jump ships, though they sometimes included lighter warships for dangerous missions. Let us now take a closer look onto the different members of the Cameron Dynasty, their most important actions, and how the face of a navy changed during their time. Michael Cameron's tenure as the leader of the Terran Hegemony spanned from 2340 to 2367. His early years in power were marked by careful observation of how the hegemony operated. Recognizing the need for centralized research efforts, Michael established the Hegemony Research Alliance Department, HRAD. This new organization aimed to consolidate all non-military research within the hegemony into a single think tank, fostering innovation and efficiency. One of Michael's most significant contributions was his sweeping governmental reform, known as Cameron's Edict, issued on New Year's Day in 2351. This bold proclamation was delivered to the Terran Congress and aimed at overhauling the existing social structure. Cameron's edict was essentially a cultural revolution, as it proposed the recreation of a nobility. This move was intended to reflect the changing times and needs of the hegemony, paving the way for a more stable social framework. During his time, we can see a further build-up of the naval forces, not only by the hegemony, but also other realms, especially the Federated Suns and the Taurian Concordat. The Lola 1 class destroyer was introduced in 2345 and named after Adelaide Lola, a prominent member of the Terran Hegemony warship subcommand. This class of destroyers was specifically designed to serve as escorts and picket ships within the Hegemony Navy. The Lola class destroyers were known for their long service and reliability over centuries. However, they had a notable design flaw: insufficient crew space, which often led to operational limitations. Initially intended to be a battlecruiser, the Quixote class was reclassified as a frigate during its design phase in 2350. Cost-cutting measures significantly reduced the size of a Quixote, leading to the installation of engines that were originally designed for the much lighter Lola-class destroyer. This resulted in an underpowered vessel that struggled with performance. Political interference and maneuvering by a procurement department bureaucrat circumvented standard admiralty procedures, resulting in the acquisition of 250 Quixote-class frigates despite their shortcomings. The Essex-1 class was another destroyer class to enter service with the Terran Hegemony. Production of the Essex-1 began in 2351 and continued for 3 decades. This prolonged production run resulted in a substantial number of Essex destroyers, making it the most numerous warship class within the Hegemony's initial fleet. The Defender-class battlecruiser was the first operational warship designed for the Federated Suns, debuting in 2360. This class was developed as a countermeasure to the Terran Hegemony's newly deployed Dreadnought-class battleships. The Defender class marked a significant step in the Federated Suns' efforts to establish a formidable naval presence. In 2364, the Taurine Concordat embarked on a military expansion program that included the construction of a warship fleet. The Winchester-class cruiser was the first warship developed under this initiative. The introduction of the Winchester class was part of a Concordat's broader strategy to bolster its defensive and offensive capabilities in a volatile interstellar environment. Margaret Cameron became the leader of the Terran Hegemony in 2367 at the age of 42, bringing with her 10 years of experience in the Hegemony Armed Forces (HAF) Navy. Her tenure was marked by significant military reforms and technological advancements. One of her most controversial initiatives was the Military Recruitment and Preparedness Bill. This bill mandated that every adult in the Hegemony be drafted into the HAF as a member of her homeworld's militia. Under this system, each citizen was required to participate in military maneuvers for 1 month every year until the age of 55. On planets bordering other realms, citizens were also issued rifles to keep at home. This approach aimed to triple the size of the HAF and allowed professional soldiers to form elite units. During her leadership, the HAF also continued to push the boundaries of military technology. One notable invention was the development of drop pellets, which were bowl-shaped heat shields that allowed tanks to make planetfall without the need for shuttle. This period of rapid technological advancements led the government to consider limiting the dissemination of new inventions to other realms. By 2380, rising tensions between the Hegemony and other interstellar governments compelled Margaret Cameron to agree to the demands of the military and the Hegemony Research Alliance Department for legal restrictions on the export of sensitive technology. This policy, known as the Mother Doctrine, established an official list of sensitive and secret technologies that were not to be shared outside the Hegemony. This measure was intended to safeguard the Hegemony's technological edge and maintain its strategic advantage. And despite the competition, it was not without success. While all realms continued to improve their navies, the Hegemony was leading them by a massive margin. The League-class destroyer, introduced in 2368, marked the Free Worlds League's first domestically designed and constructed warship. Components for the League were produced across the Free Worlds League, with final assembly completed at the Celasys Incorporated shipyards in the Loyalty system. The Monsoon-class battleship, launched in 2368, was designed to leverage the technological and tactical advancements gained from early warships, like the TAS Dreadnought. This class aimed to establish dominance in space combat and served as a template for battleship designs for the next 4 centuries. The Aegis-class heavy cruiser entered service in 2372 with the launch of a THS Aegis. This class is notable for its longevity, remaining in use for centuries across various fleets, including the Terran Hegemony, Starleague, Comster, and the clans. The Aegis class is considered one of the most successful and enduring warship designs in history. The Commonwealth class, entering service in 2375, was the first warship to be manufactured domestically by the line Commonwealth, although the production was conducted by Yoto Galactic Enterprises, a newly formed joint venture with Detron Heavy Industries, a shipbuilder from Terra itself. The De Shi class battleship, launched in 2380, was the first true warship designed and built by the Capellan Confederation. Created by the Duchy of Liao, this class was initially intended to serve as the cornerstone of the Duchy's armed merchant fleet, reflecting the Confederation's strategic doctrine at the time. The Narukami class destroyer, introduced in 2380, was the Draconis Combine's first domestically designed and manufactured warship. This class marked the beginning of the Combine's independent warship production, enhancing its naval capabilities and strategic autonomy. In 2382, Raymond Cameron, although only 34 years old and in poor health, was elected as the fourth Director General of the Terran Hegemony. A decade earlier, a near-fatal jet fighter accident had left him with severe scars and ongoing health issues. But despite these challenges, the High Council nominated him and the public supported his election. The fact that he was diagnosed as sterile did not deter this election, reflecting the faith placed in his character. Raymond's leadership was marked by controversy and authoritarian measures. In 2385, the planet Bryant voted for the repeal or modification of laws mandating the induction of every able-bodied man and women into the HAF. In response, Raymond cut off government funding to Bryant and threatened military action if they did not withdraw their demand. Faced with no alternative, Bryant reversed its request. Actions like these led to widespread animosity towards Raymond throughout the hegemony. Over the next 2 years, both the Congress and the public grew increasingly hostile. Unable to pass the laws he wanted, Raymond resorted to issuing emergency and temporary directives, further straining his relationship with the government bodies and the people. The situation reached a breaking point in late 2387 when his wife, Catherine McQuiston, became pregnant, causing a monumental scandal. Raymond's action was one of fury, leading to the arrest of Brian Cameron, his brother, whom Raymond charged with treason, a crime punishable by death. The realm was on the brink of political crisis, and in an emergency meeting 2 days before the trial, the High Council attempted to dissuade Raymond from pursuing this drastic course of action, but failed. Shortly after this meeting, Raymond Cameron was found dead in the cloakroom of the Halls of Justice. After the sudden death of Raymond Cameron, a coroner report concluded that he had died of a coronary brought on by the medication he was taking. Despite this outcome, the political climate remained tense. In September 2388, the High Council nominated Raymond's brother, Brian Cameron, as Director General of the Terran Hegemony. Brian won the position by only a slim majority, indicating the resentment many felt towards him. Brian Cameron's tenure was marked by aggressive military policies and preparations for conflict. In 2391, he announced a significant increase in military spending, aimed at bolstering defenses against the expensive Draconis Combine. This funding led to the construction of massive military complexes on all worlds bordering the Combine, famously known as the Castles Brine. These fortresses were designed to deter any potential aggression and to solidify the hegemony's military presence in the region. Despite his ambitious military projects, Brian's leadership style and decisions often drew criticism and resentment. His focus on militarization and preparation for war overshadowed other aspects of governance. Brian Cameron's rule came to an abrupt end in 2403. Then he was gored by an enraged bull while visiting a ranch. Lady Judith Cameron, the younger sister of Raymond and Brian Cameron, quickly asserted her position as the only viable choice for Director General after her brother's sudden death in 2403. She wasted no time in making significant contributions to the Terran Hegemony. Judith surprised many in the government by continuing her brother's policy of military build-up. She requested the expansion of the castle's brine, the formidable fortresses built on hegemony worlds facing the Draconis Combine, to also include other worlds, bordering the Free Worlds League and the Capellan Confederation. This strategic move was essential as the Age of War had just begun, with every major realm fighting for control of key border worlds. The Terran Hegemony, located in the middle of all the conflict, needed to ensure its defense capabilities were robust enough to withstand multiple potential aggressors. Judith's tenure also saw improved relations with the Lyran Commonwealth. Both realms engaged in joint ownership of worlds, which facilitated extensive economic and industrial development of marginal worlds within each other's territories. This collaboration fostered a sense of mutual benefit and trust between the two states. Similarly, relations between the Terran Hegemony and the Federated Suns flourished under Judith's leadership. Further joint ownership agreements for several worlds, including the recently acquired Carthago, strengthened ties and promoted economic growth with this realm as well. The Hegemony armed forces were actively involved in military engagements during her time. The Draconis Combine, the Free Worlds League, and the Capellan Confederation frequently tested the hegemony's strength through raids and strikes. However, it was in 2407 that the HAF faced its first significant challenge when the Draconis Combine launched a full-scale offensive against the Commonwealth. In 2408, the HAF encountered the Draconis Combine mustered soldiery in a major battle on the planet Alliance. The 3rd Assault Armored Division, using superior warships and a coordinated space ground defense, achieved a major victory. This battle, though costly in terms of casualties, demonstrated the effectiveness of Judith's military strategies. On the opposing front, in 2409, the HAF successfully repelled the forces of a Capellan Confederation, who attempted to seize terra firma. The famed Black Charger Tank Division led the ground forces and, despite being outnumbered and facing enemy naval support, held their ground for 2 months before being forced to withdraw. A major hegemony relief force, complete with warships, soon arrived to retake the planet, showcasing the importance of warships at this stage of history. Judith Cameron's tenure was marked by a blend of military strength and diplomatic prowess. Her strategic expansions and alliances ensured the hegemony's stability and growth during a tumultuous period in interstellar history. The Tracer-class surveillance vessel, introduced in 2407, was a small warship designed primarily for monitoring trade routes and in-system communications. Comparable in size to a corvette, the Tracer was not equipped to withstand sustained attacks, featuring only minimal defensive armaments. Its classification as a warship was due to its design incorporating a compact Kearney Fushida drive, which enabled it to perform its surveillance duties efficiently across various systems. Richard Cameron, the illegitimate son of Lord Brian Cameron and Lady Catherine McQuiston, ascended to leadership of the Terran Hegemony when his aunt, Judith Cameron, retired in 2419. At the time of his aunt's retirement, Richard was serving as a naval officer, commanding the Lola-class destroyer Beatrice. Richard Cameron is best remembered for his bold seizure of the Kantara system from the Federated Suns in 2431. Being surrounded by hostile realms, the Hegemony armed forces recognized the strategic necessity for a small yet powerful patrol vessel. In 2432, they introduced the Vincent-class corvette. This warship was designed to monitor and defend the approaches to hegemony worlds, providing a robust deterrent capable of delaying intruding forces. Jacob Cameron, like his predecessors, started his career as a Navy captain, commanding the Vincent-class corvette Crown Lion. Spoiled by his doting father, Jacob grew to be a pompous and arrogant man, alienating all but his most devoted followers. Driven by ego, he ordered the Hegemony armed forces to launch campaigns against both the Federated Sons and the Capellan Confederation. This culminated in the Battle of Tybalt in 2435. Despite leading his units to victory, the offensive was a minor success at best and resulted in significant Hegemony casualties. In February 2448, an unknown assassin attempted to poison Lord Jacob's champagne. Though he became deadly ill, he did not ingest enough poison to kill him. This failed assassination attempt slightly tempered his notorious arrogance and his superiority complex. Despite his challenging personality, Jacob Cameron is fondly remembered by all living Mechwarriors for presiding over the birth of a battle mech. To achieve this, the Hegemony sacrificed other military programs, including several for the warship fleet. As a result, these ships, once the pride of the military, went without regular maintenance for a whole year. However, several new types were introduced into the Blackwater Navy. Developed during the height of the Age of War, the Riga-class frigate was created to fulfill a previously neglected role. It was designed as a large destroyer capable of independent operations while boasting firepower on par with contemporary cruisers. The Nightwing-class warship, introduced in 2447, was primarily engineered for surveillance missions. Externally resembling smaller civilian jump ships, common on trade routes during the Age of War, the Nightwing distinguished itself with superior armament, enhanced armor, and the absence of docking collars. It also featured the most advanced surveillance technology of its time. Commissioned as a pure battleship, the Farragut-class warship was designed to replace the aging Dreadnought and Monsoon classes. The concept, initiated by Lord Richard Cameron, aimed to advance naval power. Though the design phase began in 2430, Richard Cameron did not live to see its completion. The first Farragut-class vessel was launched in 2448. Theodore Cameron, who ruled from 2461 to 2479, lived a life of decadence, often neglecting the affairs of state. However, he did not completely ignore his duties, especially when it came to the military. Continuing his father's military build-up plan, Theodore was committed to strengthening the Hegemony armed forces. During Theodore's reign, relations between the Terran Hegemony and the Free Worlds League began to deteriorate, leading to the Oriente campaign. In a masterstroke of strategic brilliance, the Terran Hegemony decisively crushed the malevolent plans of the Merrick family, especially the paranoid Carlos Merrick, who had deluded himself into believing that the Hegemony's military build-up was a prelude to an invasion of his backward realm. In a futile attempt to counter our unmatched might, the Free Worlds League embarked on a reckless expansion of their own military, focusing on assembling a large and modern fleet of warships. But our Lord Theodore Cameron, a paragon of military acumen, saw through their feeble attempts. Understanding that the new commissioned Free Worlds warships would, under competent leadership, potentially pose a threat to hegemony worlds near our shared border, Lord Theodore took personal command of a mighty fleet led by his flagship, the battlecruiser Kiev. With a visionary's resolve and a conqueror's courage, he orchestrated a massive naval assault against the Free World fleet anchored at the Oriente star system. In what was heralded as the largest fleet action ever undertaken, Lord Theodore's strategic genius shone brightly. Over 20 major Free Worlds warships were obliterated in a display of unrivaled military prowess, while our glorious troops suffered the loss of mere 2 vessels. This resounding victory did not merely showcase our superior naval might, It ignited a political earthquake within the Free Worlds League. The resulting upheaval saw a bloodless coup led by Brian Merrick, who ousted his erratic brother Carlos. In the wake of his decisive triumph, Theodore Cameron extended an olive branch to the new Captain General Brian Merrick. In 2478, a peace treaty was signed, sealing their victory and ensuring stability in the region. Theodore's enduring legacy was further cemented when he attended Brian Merrick's funeral as retired Director General in 2511, a testament to the enduring strength and magnanimity of the Terran Hegemony. Terran Schoolbook 2558. Elizabeth Cameron reigned as Director General of the Terran Hegemony from 2479 to 2501. Known for her penchant for extravagance, Elizabeth's indulgence, however, was notably less excessive compared to her father's opulence. Because of her lavish lifestyle, Elizabeth displayed a marked disinterest in both the military and economic affairs of the state. Her lack of engagement in these critical areas led to a significant challenge for the hegemony. The Terran Hegemony armed forces, under Elizabeth's rule, fought few battles. Instead, their focus was primarily on the enhancement of their weaponry. Advances were made in lighter battle mech frames, improved computer systems, and aerospace fighters, reflecting a period of technological development. By the time of Elizabeth's death, from New Earth Pox in 2501, the Terran Hegemony was in a state of political instability. Discussions about potentially dissolving the government were becoming more frequent, underscoring the growing concerns about the future of the hegemony under her lackluster leadership. The Sylvester-class transport, introduced in 2499, holds the distinction of being the first warship designed by civilians. Conceptualized by merchant noble Graf Hans Sylvester of the Lyran Commonwealth during the Age of War, this vessel was the most heavily armed civilian ship ever launched. The Sylvester was designed with dual objectives: to serve as a well-armed convoy transport capable of defending against pirate attacks, and to project power, thereby intimidating the mercantile actors of neighboring realms. Deborah Cameron took over as Director General of the Terran Hegemony in 2501. Following a period of significant public discontent with her predecessors, she quickly worked to restore confidence in her leadership by demonstrating that she would not follow in her mother's footsteps of wasteful extravagance and ineffective governance. The public greeted her initial reforms with cautious optimism, as they aimed to address the financial mismanagement that had plagued the hegemony in previous years. Under Deborah's direction, the hegemony adopted a policy of using its superior military primarily for defensive purposes. Instead of pursuing aggressive military expansion, Deborah sought to enhance the hegemony's stability and international reputation through peaceful trade and diplomatic efforts. In 2502, Deborah introduced her strategy of aggressive peacemaking, a diplomatic initiative designed to foster positive relations with other interstellar states. Her approach involved offering mediation services to resolve conflicts between other realms, with only a nominal fee and a request for unrestricted travel between conflicting parties. This strategy had dual benefits for the Terran hegemony. It reduced the likelihood of a hegemony being drawn into wars, and strengthened its political ties with other states by showcasing the effectiveness and reliability of its diplomats. Despite the overall success of her diplomatic strategy, Deborah faced resistance from within the hegemony armed forces. A small faction of military personnel feared that her focus on diplomacy and trade would undermine and diminish the role of the military. Although the majority of officers and soldiers remained loyal, some questioned the future of their already limited influence in hegemony politics. This discontent was kept subdued during Deborah's tenure, but it planted seeds of dissatisfaction that would eventually come to fruition. One notable advancement during Deborah Cameron's leadership was the introduction of a lithium fusion battery in 2531. This new technology was a significant development for the Terran Hegemony, as it allowed jump ships and warships to carry an additional charge for their Kearney Fushida drives, enhancing their operational capabilities. The Pinto-class corvette, introduced by the Rimworld's Republic in 2502, was originally designed as a picket vessel. Despite its weak armor, it had a strong offensive capability, making it more effective as an escort ship or for providing orbital support during invasion operations. Demonstrating solidarity, House Amaris authorized sales of the Pinto class to other major periphery realms, while 2 shipyards in the Rimworld's Republic handled its construction. The Concordat-class warship, launched in 2506, served both the Taurian Concordat and the Magistry of Canopus throughout the 26th century. Designed to anchor naval task forces consisting of assault and fighter carrier dropship, as well as other warships, the Concordat typically transported at least 2 dropship fighter carriers, playing a crucial role in fleet operations. The Davian-class heavy destroyer, introduced by the Federated Suns in 2501, underwent near-total redesigns to address its initial shortcomings. The modifications aimed to enhance its operational effectiveness and ensure it met the rigorous demands of space warfare. The Baron-class destroyer, a moderately effective design by the Terran Hegemony, suffered from protracted development and construction issues. Introduced in 2520, these delays hindered its deployment and operational efficiency. The Avatar-class heavy cruiser, introduced by the Terran Hegemony in 2531, was designed to replace the aging Aegis class. Weighing 85,000 tons more than its predecessor due to heavier armor and weaponry, the Avatar utilized advances in warship and drive system design to maintain 1.5 g of acceleration for extended periods. The Congress-class frigate, built to replace the outdated Quixote class, entered service in 2542. Known for its speed, the Congress class became one of the swiftest convoy escorts and reconnaissance warships of the 26th century, significantly enhancing fleet mobility and operational response times. Joseph Cameron ascended to the role of a Director General in 2542, following the retirement of his mother, Lady Deborah Cameron. Though he was the eldest of Lady Deborah's 3 children, Joseph was not known for his brilliance, but for his experience in government affairs. His military background as a combat officer in the Marine Corps added to his credentials, despite the loss of his right eye in a training accident. Joseph promised to continue his mother's diplomatic-focused policies, which stressed funding for diplomatic efforts over military expenditures. He publicly praised diplomats as being more valuable than soldiers, a stance that drew considerable ire from the hegemony armed forces. This support for the aggressive peacemaking policy exuberated existing resentment within the military, leading to the formation of secret warrior societies, or cabals, among the various branches of service. One prominent member of these cabals was Captain Henry Green, an administrative clerk in the Marine Corps. Frustrated with the perceived ineffectiveness of the cabal's action, Captain Green decided to take matters into his own hands. On September 19, 2549, Green infiltrated the grounds of Joseph's palace on Terra and spent 27 hours waiting for the right moment. From a concealed position in a tree, he took aim with his laser rifle and shot Joseph as he exited his limousine. Joseph Cameron succumbed to his wounds 6 days after the assassination attempt. Ian Cameron, the younger brother of Joseph Cameron, assumed the role of Director General on September 28, 2549, immediately declaring himself the 13th leader of the Terran Hegemony without waiting for a public confirmation vote. One of Ian's first action was to address the concerns of the Hegemony Armed Forces, HAF. Recognizing the need to bolster military strength, he reversed the trend of reducing the military budget. Ian granted the HAF a substantial increase in funding, aiming to restore its technological superiority over neighboring states. This move was designed to reassure the military that their role was crucial to the hegemony's defense. In addition to military concerns, Ian faced significant economic challenges. The hegemony's resources were dwindling, threatening its ability to sustain technological advancements. Ian was determined to prevent the hegemony from becoming reliant on foreign nations for its needs, and sought to find additional resources to support his ambitions. He was driven by both practicality and a long-held idealistic vision, the reunification of all human civilizations under a single government. This vision led to the creation of a Star League, a unifying political entity intended to consolidate humanity. The details of how Ian achieved the unification of mankind under the Star League, including his political maneuvers in the intense unification war, are beyond the scope of this summary. However, it is well known that the Terran Blackwater Navy played a crucial role in this historic effort, marking a significant chapter in the hegemony's and humanity's history. To get an idea how huge the Navy of this time was, it should be noted that the newly formed SLDF, Star League Defense Force, had over 500 capital warships. Military After Action Report, Operation Case Amber. Date: Fall 2576-2577. Location: Tentativa System. Enemy: Taurian Concordat. Allied Forces: Davian Auxiliary Force. The Taurian Concordat, led by ruler Mitchell Calderon, initiated a preemptive naval offensive against the Davian Auxiliary Force. The primary goal was to inflict significant damage on enemy vessels, particularly troopships, to delay the Star League's course arrival and integration of reinforcements from the Hyades cluster. This operation, known as Case Amber, was strategically designed to disrupt the League's offensive capabilities. Execution. In a calculated move, the Taurian Navy exploited existing tensions between the Concordat and the Federated Suns to lure 3/4 of the Davian Navy into an ill-conceived offensive. This deception forced the Davian forces into launching a naval operation that drew them far from their borders. Seizing the opportunity, the Taurians deployed an additional fleet of warships to intercept the Davian vessels. The Taurian forces executed a two-pronged strategy, engaging the Davian fleet in a head-on confrontation and simultaneously cutting off their escape routes. The engagement occurred in the Tentativa System, where the Taurian fleet waited the arrival of the Davian forces. Outcome. The battle concluded with a decisive victory for the Taurian Concordat. The engagement resulted in the destruction or capture of over 20 Davian warships, while the Taurian forces sustained minimal losses, with only 3 vessels lost. The operation achieved its intended effect of significantly weakening the Davian naval presence and delaying the Star League's course offensive capabilities. Assessment. The successful execution of this preemptive strike effectively stalled our plans and provided the Taurian Concordat with critical time to reinforce its defenses. We've given 1 million men and women the knowledge to kill in new and exciting ways, then taken away their weapons and told them that they can't practice what they have learned. From a letter by General Chandra Cameron to her husband, Lord Ian Cameron, October 2569. The Atreus-class battleship was developed shortly before the formation of the Star League. This vessel showcased the Free World League's naval capabilities and economic strength. The Atreus class was considered comparable, if not superior, to contemporary warships fielded by the Lyran Commonwealth, Capellan Confederation, and even Terran Hegemony. In response to the Davian Civil War, First Prince Alexander Davian initiated a warship construction program to address the Federated Sun's naval inferiority. This program began in 2546 and culminated in the development of a new Syrtis-class carrier in 2557. This carrier was part of a broader effort to modernize and expand the Federated Sun's warship fleet. The Robertson-class transport was introduced in 2560, following the Davian Civil War. It was intended to replace lost ships in the Federated Sun's fleet and to reward loyal supporters of Prince Alexander Davian. The Robertson-class served dual purposes as a transport vessel and a naval support ship for invasions, featuring large cargo bays and anti-naval weaponry for bombardment. The Athena-class cruiser was initially conceptualized by the Terran Alliance, but was later revisited by the Magistry of Canopus during the final stages of the Age of War. The Magistry produced a version of the Athena more faithful to the original design, making it the first warship domestically built by the Canopians. Named for the wagon wheels of ancient Terra, the frigate was designed to enhance the Taurian Concordate's navy and for export to other periphery realms. Entering service just before the formation of the Star League, it symbolized solidarity between the smaller realms, although this unity did not endure the subsequent conflicts. The Samarkand-class carrier, introduced in 2579, was the Draconis Combine's premier fighter carrier and a key warship at the dawn of the Star League era. Known for its substantial fighter complement, the Samarkand class served efficiently as an escort vessel, enhancing the Combine's naval capabilities. The Kimagure-class pursuit carrier, initially a proof-of-concept vessel by Cresta's ship construction, impressed the Star League Defense Force, SLDF, enough to place initial order for 12 ships in 2582. The success of the Kimagure class earned Crestas the contract to develop a certain bigger battleship class vessel in the 27th century. The New Grange 3 class yardship, introduced in 2600, was among the largest KF drive equipped vessels. At 2,500 meters long and weighing 2.3 million tons, it was designed for mobile repair and refit support. Utilizing the same compact Kearney Fushida drive and ferrocarbide armor as the warship it maintained, the New Grange featured a massive forward-mounted unpressurized repair bay capable of serving vessels nearly its own size. The reign of Nicholas Cameron between 2602 and 2649 is often hailed as the good years, a time of unprecedented progress and prosperity. During this era, the intense focus on developing increasingly powerful weapons of war gave way to a renewed emphasis on improving the quality of life for all citizens. The leaders of the Star League member states, including the Terran Hegemony, the Federated Suns, and the Allied Commonwealth, shifted their scientific and industrial efforts toward more benevolent pursuits. One of the most notable advancements of these years was the development of a hyperpulse generator. This significant technological breakthrough revolutionized communication across the Star League, enhancing the efficiency and reliability of long-distance communications. Starting in 2632, the League experienced rapid expansion due to advances in water purification technologies. These new purifiers greatly reduce the cost of maintaining water resources on newly colonized planets. Despite the high-tech maintenance required, the optimistic and prosperous climate of the era made it feasible to use them. As a result, the Star League's influence grew significantly. By the end of Nicholas Cameron's tenure, more than 1,000 new planets had been colonized, and the League's sphere of control extended over a vast area, approximately 540 light-years in diameter. Altogether, the era under Nicholas Cameron marked a transformative period of growth and development, with advances in technology and infrastructure, laying the foundation for a more interconnected and flourishing interstellar community. This also meant more warships. In 2603, the Terran Hegemony, inspired by the costly yet impressive Sylvester merchant warship, developed the Terra-class military transport. Designed to operate in potentially hostile periphery shipping lanes, the Carrack served both the Star League defense forces and Great House navies, fulfilling a vital role as an armed merchantman. The Whirlwind-class origins lie during the reunification war against the periphery, with a Star League Defense Force Navy leasing 22 of the original Davian-class warships. After the war, the SLDF purchased the remaining 19 of these vessels, retrofitting them with advanced technology from the Terran Hegemony. The resulting vessels were called the Whirlwind-class. Introduced in 2611, the Potemkin-class troop cruiser, also known as a corncob cruiser due to its distinctive dropship hardpoint arrangement, addressed the issue of poorly protected transports. The Potemkin provided enhanced protection and troop transport capabilities for the SLDF. It has a dropship capacity of 25. A Texas-class warship, thus developed by the Star League in 2618, was designed to replace the aging Monsoon-class battleship. The SLDF Admiralty required increased speed and heavy protection for this new battleship. Criteria successfully met by the Texas class, influenced by the design principles of Cresta's Kimagura-class pursuit carrier. Commissioned by the Hegemony Armed Forces to replace the Nightwing and Tracer vessels, the Buckeye-class surveillance vessel entered service with the Star League Navy in 2620. This compact and highly advanced vessel had a distinguished service record, excelling in surveillance operations amid belligerent neighbors. The Lola II class destroyer, an upgraded version of the original Lola I, was introduced in 2622 as a replacement for the Lola I. Built by Blue Nose Clipper ships under license from Boeing Interstellar, the Lola II featured naval missile systems instead of anti-aerospace weaponry, reflecting the growing importance of warships. In response to the increased colonization efforts of the early 27th century, the Star League Navy faced overextension. To address this, they commissioned the Carson-class destroyer from Thompson's shipyards in 2632. The Carson, known for its high-quality design, served as an escort ship, allowing the Star League to more efficiently deploy its fleets across expanding territories. Launched in 2645, the Naga-class light destroyer was designed by the Terran Hegemony to serve as a light but well-armed escort ship for the Star League Navy. Intended to replace the Essex-1 class destroyer, the Naga was extremely successful in its role, becoming the core vessel class for Star League fleets for the next 50 years. Michael Cameron II, who began his tenure as Director General in 2649, was a man of notable contrasts. Though he received his education at the War Academy and graduated as a naval officer, Michael had a scholarly inclination that shaped his approach to leadership. His military career was largely centered aboard the battleship Arkansas, where he first served as a science officer and later as the second-in-command. Despite the overall peaceful nature of his administration, he was not without conflicts. The most significant of these was the first hidden war with the Draconis Combine. As a result, Michael oversaw the introduction of the Gunslinger program, a significant development in military technology and strategy. The McKenna-class battleship, introduced by Blue Nose Clipper ships of Mars in 2652, stands as one of the most iconic warships in history. Serving as a symbol of martial power for over 4 centuries, the McKenna quickly became the pride of the Star League Defense Force Navy. The class achieved notable acclaim by winning the Martial Olympiads consecutively in 2696 and 2700, highlighting its superior design and effectiveness. An impressive total of 280 McKenna-class battleships were constructed, averaging nearly 2 per year until the fall of the Star League. Entering service with a Star League Navy in 2662, the Lola 3 class destroyer was the third warship named after Rear Admiral Adelaide Lola. Designed for rapid and cost-effective production, the Lola 3 proved to be a robust and reliable vessel. It was capable of performing escort duties in periphery and extended picket duties within the Terran Hegemony. Known for its heavy armament and armor, the Lola 3 was the most formidable destroyer of its time. Maybe this class was a sign of things to come. The Cameron-class battlecruiser, introduced in 2688, exemplified the contradictions and challenges of its era. Despite its prestigious name, the class was plagued by design flaws and operational issues. It was intended to bridge the gap between the Navy's battleships and cruisers, but conflicting requirements from the Star League Defense Force and severe budget constraints during peacetime led to a compromised design. The Cameron class became infamous for being a hazardous assignment for its crews and was considered a significant misstep in the SLDF's naval development. I resent being called a warmonger. Just because I have an interest in keeping our military up to date does not mean the passion of a conqueror flows through my veins. In fact, the opposite is true. I want to so fortify our league that it would be foolhardy for even the strongest militaries to attack us. First Lord Jonathan, responding to reporters' questions about whether his massive military build-up was a prelude to war. 2694. The era of Jonathan Cameron's leadership, beginning in 2690, marked a significant shift in the Terran hegemony. Despite the prevailing peace, which had become a defining characteristic of life in the hegemony, the First Lord's decision to propose a major expansion of the Star League defense forces came as a considerable surprise. This was particularly striking, given that peace had become so ingrained that the previous First Lord, Michael Cameron II, had even entertained proposals to reduce the military budget. First Lord Jonathan's proposal for military expansion was driven by his beliefs that League scientists were on the brink of a renaissance in military technology that would render all previous advancements insignificant. When questions about the allocation of funds towards such an expansion, Jonathan explained that new technology would be first allocated to the royal units of the SLDF, then to other SLDF units after a few years, and finally to the house militaries after a decade or more. The member states would receive these technologies in the form of hand-me-downs, thus benefiting indirectly from the advancements. One of the most significant developments during Jonathan Cameron's tenure was the Space Defense System, SDS. The SDS featured a series of free-roving defenders known as M5 drones. These automated warships, compact and agile, were designed with the firepower of battlecruisers, but the size of a Lola destroyer. The Space Defense System were primarily deployed in orbit near jump points and near important planets. Jonathan Cameron's vision extended to ensuring that Terra itself had formidable defenses. Under his directive, the space around Terra was heavily fortified with automated warships, enforcing a identify or be destroyed protocol for any approaching ship. This extensive defensive network, covering the entire solar system with particular emphasis on the two main jump points, was named the Regin Defense, in honor of a historical Terran leader who had envisioned a similar defensive system. As his rule progressed, First Lord Jonathan Cameron increasingly relied on his younger sister, Mother Jocasta, to assist with the governance of the realm. Her growing influence in state affairs marked a notable feature of his last years in power. My greatest nightmare is that of Terra, dying in explosion and flames. No hope exists amid the rubble, only the step of hulking mechs, the smell of smoke and death, and the wail of orphan children. From a letter by Jonathan Cameron to his wife, 2704. The Farragut-class battlecruiser, introduced in 2690, marked the beginning of a new series of warships for the Lyran Commonwealth during the Star League era. This class was designed to rival the contemporary cruiser-sized warships, such as the Avatar, Aegis, and later the Sovietsky Soyuz class. The Target class was effectively on par with these designs, but was outclassed by larger vessels like the Texas and McKenna class battleships. Developed in 2691, the Black Lion class battlecruiser was named after the legendary Black Lion of former Director General James McKenna. The Black Lion class was conceived in response to the disappointing performance of a Cameron-class ship. This new class surpassed all expectations and became a successful design, with 2 units built annually for the next 31 years. The Mako-class corvette, introduced by the Lion Commonwealth in 2692, was a departure from conventional Lyran combat doctrines that emphasized large, heavy armed vessels. Instead, the Mako class was characterized by its small size, speed, and considerable armament and armor. It was designed primarily as an escort vessel for larger fleet operations, but also capable of serving as a border garrison or conducting independent missions, for it was noted for its cramped conditions. The Volga-class transport, developed in 2709, was commissioned by the Star League Defense Force to provide armored cargo transport capabilities for supporting bases and the periphery states. Eaton Aerospace adapted the hull of the obsolete Quixote-class frigate for this purpose. The Volga-class utilized a small drive system which allowed it to carry an unusually large cargo capacity, amounting to nearly 25% of a vessel's mass. The M5 Caspar Capital drone, introduced in 2710, represented the pinnacle of a Star League Defense Force Special Defense System network. Named after the historical Terran commander Caspar Weinberger, the M5 drones gained a legendary status following the fall of the Star League, and were talked about in revered tones since the Star League Civil War. The M5 drone, based on a heavily modified Laura II hull, mounted firepower equivalent to that of a Texas-class battleship, while maintaining the thrust profile of a destroyer. These drones were a crucial component of a defense network, with many worlds within the hegemony protected by at least a few M5 drones, and key worlds, including Terra, defended by up to 250 of these units. The SX-2 class destroyer was introduced in 2711 as the second class to carry the Essex name. It was developed in response to requirements from the Star League Navy for a destroyer capable of rapid deployment and long-range sustained operations without the need for frequent resupply. This class was designed to replace the aging Baron, Carson, and Naga class destroyers, which had succeeded the original SX-1 class destroyers in 2645. The Luxor class heavy cruiser was introduced in 2727 to fulfill a request from the Star League Naval Command for a successor to the Avatar class cruiser. This class was developed to offer enhanced capabilities and improvements of the previous Avatar class, aiming to meet the evolving needs of the Star League Navy. The Soya class heavy cruiser was proposed to the Star League Defense Force in 2731 as a potential replacement for the Avatar class heavy cruiser. The design competition to replace the Avatar class was highly contested, but despite the Soya class being a strong candidate, the contract was awarded to the Luxor class. This outcome was influenced by political maneuvering, notably the intervention of Craig Kovac, the chief executive officer of Blue Nose Clipper ships. Those influence ensured that their design, the Luxor class, was selected over the Soya class proposal. Simon Cameron ascended to the position of First Lord in 2738, inheriting a Star League in disarray due to the tumultuous and costly reign of his father, Jonathan Cameron. The League had been marred by internal conflict, largely a result of Jonathan's paranoia and the financial strain imposed by the ambitious space defense system. Faced with the task of mending the fractured relationship between House Cameron and its subjects, Simon embarked on a mission to restore stability and trust. With a background in politics, and known for his fairness and blunt honesty, Simon Cameron sought to bridge the gap left by his father's rule. His approach earned him widespread support among the public, who appreciated his transparent and just governance. However, his forthright manner and efforts to address the underlying issues also made him enemies among some of the more self-serving house lords, who found his directness and reformative stance challenging. Sadly, Simon's efforts to stabilize and improve the Star League were cut short. In February 2751, while visiting the Star's End system, Simon Cameron was killed in an unusual accident involving a mining robot. The Sovietsky Soyuz was developed in 2742 as part of an overhaul of the Star League Defense Forces naval fleet, which had suffered from neglect due to the substantial financial resources allocated to the automated space defense system. Although it was officially designated as a heavy cruiser, the Sovietsky Soyuz was informally classified as a battlecruiser by SLDF officials due to its capabilities and role within the fleet. Conceived in 2745 as a supercarrier, the Enterprise was an ambitious project by the Star League Defense Force. The intent behind its design was to counteract the possible obsolescence by SLDF Blackwater battleships, which had been rendered less effective by the advancements in fighter carriers, paralleling the shift from blue water battleships to aircraft carriers in naval warfare during the 20th century. The Enterprise was a one-of-a-kind warship and a remarkable failure. The Riga II class, introduced in 2747, was a derivative of the earlier Riga class. The Riga II was essentially a destroyer and fighter carrier, reflecting the increased utilization of lithium fusion batteries in the Star League Defense Force Navy. Initially, added batteries had revitalized the cruiser class in the 2500s. However, by the 2600s, cruisers had been largely replaced by the more advanced McKenna-class battleships, which were increasingly deployed independently. The Riga II class was developed to provide the necessary heavy escorts for these battleships, addressing the growing need for robust support vessels as the McKenna class became more prevalent. This one you should already know well. After becoming a child emperor at a very young age, he trusted the wrong man, and not only he, but also his family, the hegemony, the Star League, and mankind itself would pay the price. The repercussions are felt even today. The name of this battleship class is not only ominous, it also tells you all you really have to know about this time in history. The Stefan Amaris class was the first and only battleship created for the Navy of the Rim-World Republic. Built prior to the Amaris coup, President Stefan Amaris was the driving force that led to the construction of the class as a part of his efforts. The golden age of warships did not end with a bang, and neither with a whimper. It was more a long, grueling slugfest than anything else. SLDF General Alexander Kerensky was faced with a variation of the unstoppable force versus unmovable object problem. The Navy of the SLDF, which at this point was a synonym with the hegemony, was designed to conquer any interstellar realm, while the hegemony was fortified to withstand any fleet. You can see the problem? To make things worse for the warships, General Kerensky had a very Russian approach to naval warfare. How many hulls do we have? Can they overwhelm the system's defenses? Then send them all in. The SLDF brute forced their way into any system and onto every planet of the hegemony, leaving fields of debris where they faced opposition. In every engagement, the once massive Blackwater fleet was reduced more and more. When the war was finally over, there was still a sizable amount of warships left, but it was a far cry away from the magnificent navy of old. But even this little was too much. Fate dictates that we are not allowed to have nice things, and so Kerensky had his little tantrum and decided to run away, forsaking all his oaths of loyalty and leaving the very people he was supposed to protect at the non-existing mercy of the House Lords. He assembled the most deluded of his followers and started Operation Exodus, the long way to remove them all from the sphere, so that they would shed their humanity and become something else in the depths of the periphery. And with them they took a fleet of 1,349 jump ships, over 5,000 dropships, and above all 402 warships. The once mighty hegemony was now bare of any defense and open for the greed of the great houses. The only glimmer of hope was the brilliance of Jerome Blake and the devotion of his followers, as you know. The realms, which soon would be known as the successor states, did not fare much better. Their navies were powerful, but much smaller than the one the SLDF had commanded. Nonetheless, they would all be thrown into the cataclysm of the First Succession War. We could attempt to follow the movements of these warships, which far too often operated in small squadrons or even with no support at all. But what would be the point? The First Succession War was an undescribable nightmare. Billions would be slaughtered just to prevent a rival from making them his subjects. Advanced planets, industrial centers, and paradise worlds were purposefully turned into lifeless wasteland in scorched earth approaches, and warships were the usual harbingers of doom, executioners, the destroyer of worlds. There are no reports if the people on the ground were thankful or frightened when these ships took a break from devastating planets and destroyed one another. Probably they were too busy fighting for survival to care either way. So slowly, the warships themselves made sure to go extinct. The annihilation of almost all existing dry docks and maintenance facilities, as well as every discovered naval base, only aided this process. The last warships in the innersphere were believed to be destroyed during the 8th battle for Hesperus II in 2853, when the Second Succession War raged through the sphere. From this point onwards, warships were LosTech, nothing more than a tale from a past far away, lost to time itself. If they are so powerful, why did the House Lords abandon them? Would it not have benefited them to rebuild their navies, just like they have constantly replenished their armies? Why were warships lost? The short answer: they were expensive. The long answer: they were expensive because... Well, the problems start with the necessary compact CF drives. It is hard enough to build the regular variant. You need the construction yard, huge amounts of rare elements, the workforce capable to undertake the complicated and dangerous work, and of course a design team knowledgeable in the construction of CF drives. The compact version requires even more specialized knowledge. has far stricter tolerances and takes significantly longer to be assembled. And while there had been at least a few factories for regular drives in the different realms, the ones capable to support compact CF drives were almost all located in the core territory of the Terran Hegemony. During the Star League, this was not a problem at all. The great houses could simply buy the drives, or even the complete warships, right from the Hegemony. In fact, receiving hand-me-downs from Terra was the usual way to build a Blackwater navy. But when these regions of space became the main battlefield of the succession wars, the supplies disappeared, except for fragments and ruins. It is interesting to note that the main production lines in the biggest facility, the Titan yards, remained untarnished. However, this was no benefit for the great houses, since they were located in the Sol system, together with Holy Terra, and the custodians of humanity's cradle were now the neutral, pacifist, and resolute independent members of the Holy Comstar Order. Another, often ignored problem is the lack of qualified Navy personnel that could have trained a new generation of spacers. While extremely expensive in terms of resources and technology, the amount of men to crew a warship was rather small. Even the huge McKenna class only needed a crew of about 600. But what looks like a benefit was a disadvantage. Without the need to train huge amount of crew and officers, no one outside the hegemony put much effort in safeguarding the training of new recruits. This was made worse by the deadly nature of space combat. A defeated Mechwarrior can punch out and run back to his lines. An army can disengage and regroup. But a warship trapped in a losing battle was unlikely to escape. And while it was possible to abandon ship, there was no guarantee that the escape pods and lifeboats would not be used for additional target practice. Altogether, the attrition led to a complete change of warfare. The First and Second Succession Wars were dominated by large operations and massive invasions that would have favored the use of fleets. The Third Succession War, which lasted for centuries, was different. All participants were utterly resource-starved, and the fighting deteriorated to a series of raids and counter-raids, designed as much to conquer resources and war material as to safeguard the own assets. If the transport ships and its mech cargo are blown up in outer space, salvage becomes very unlikely. If you want a factory for your own needs, you do not want to turn it into ruins and rubble. With more and more technologies and machines becoming LosTech, the avatars of destruction became less and less useful. So there came a mutual understanding into effect, a gentleman agreement between the House Lords to refrain from building a new Blackwater navy. The fleets of the innersphere would be made up by civilian-patterned jump ships, transporting dropships from system to system. If any fighting would occur, it would be between these military dropships and their aerospace fighter escorts. But more often than not, even these engagements were avoided. The bulk of the fighting was between small units of battlemechs and supporting ground forces, firmly on the soil of a planet. However, there is this thing about mutual understandings. They are just mutual. Third parties are not bound by them in any way. When the jocks of the houses made their dealings, they ignored the nerd in their middle. And here the word middle is to be taken literary. The Holy Order of Comstar was benevolent and kind, but not foolish. They had maintained their production facilities and used them to increase their own fleet of jump ship. Then, under the leadership of Primus Hollings York, they decided that it was no longer wise or feasible to face the rest of the sphere with only the soft power means they had mastered. It was decided to build a dedicated Comstar Guard and militia to protect the future of mankind. These forces would also include a navy. Comstars started to collect derelict old jump drives and refurbish them. Mothballed warships were reactivated and new ones built. It was a slow but steady build-up, hidden from the eyes of unbelievers, and its magnitude would not be revealed before the 3050s. And even then it was only thanks to another faction. But what finally shattered the mutual understanding was not the sneaky guy hidden in plain sight. It was the brutal savage that crushed through the door and hollered his battle challenges to the self-obsessed lords. Challenges that were not only backed by hyper-advanced battle mechs, but also by a fleet of warships. You know who is meant. Kwiath? After Kerensky's exodus, the departing soldiers were not lost to the void of space, something that many people before 3049 feared, and countless people after 3049 wished. Instead, they had made their way to a part of space in the deep periphery, named by them the Pentagon Worlds. The foolish and misguided hopes of General Alexander Kerensky to create a new, peaceful society were soon crushed, and the survivors turned onto each other, battling over the precious few resources they still had. It was his son, Nicholas Kerensky, who later assembled a group of his followers and led them on a second exodus into the newly discovered Kerensky cluster. Here he forged them into something completely new, something other than human, something unnatural. He would forge them into the clans. His ideas, which are as evil as they were brilliant, and the events surrounding him, are again a topic worthy of its own tale. But we should focus on our subject. If it were only for the average clans, the history of warships would be significantly shorter. While they took diligent care to maintain the venerable vessels that had carried them during the exodus, and used them in their capacity as jump ships, they were unlikely to use them in battle or to start a new build-up program. But one of them was different. We will never know how Nicholas Kerensky decided which warrior should join which clan, and so it is unclear why he assigned everyone with a close relation to the government of the old hegemony and Star League, together with most of the naval personnel. Maybe it was to support the character of their new leader, Stephen McKenna, first Khan of Clan Snow Raven. If you paid attention, the surname, which with him became a clan blood name, should be familiar to you. And indeed, he was a distant relative of the first Director General, James McKenna. And just like his illustrious forebearer, he had two passions, politics and the Navy. The early history of this clan was anything but successful. The war to reclaim the Pentagon Worlds had destroyed much of its ground forces, and a few years later its capital would become the victim of a nuclear strike. It seemed like the clan would soon face the absorption into one of its competitors, but the McKenna tradition was too strong to allow this. While the other clans ignored the warships that were still mothballed above the Pentagon Worlds, Clan Snow Raven focused all his energy and power into one task, controlling as many of them as possible. While other bid and negotiated for battle mechs, they hunted for the building blocks of a mighty Blackwater Navy. And the plan was a success. When the situation had calmed down, Clan Snow Raven had acquired such a massive fleet that it could compete with its opponents. And in the following years, decades and centuries, they would even increase this advantage. Above their home planet of Lum, they constructed a complex of factories, yards, and dry docks that was only rivaled by far-away Terra. Their fleet was big enough to fight any two other clans at the same time and crush them. To finance this, they often worked as teamsters and taxi drivers for the other clans. In exchange for technologies and resources, they would ferry these warriors to their battlefield of choice, always willing to fight the path through opposing ships and aerospace fighters. They were the main source for refits, research, and new creations in the field of naval technologies. Since they preferred a very cautious approach regarding the innersphere, they counted themselves to the warden faction of the clans. Not among the invading clans. During Operation Revival, the future would have interesting plans for them. The Fastlane class yardship, introduced in 2882, was a design originating from Comstar, based on the Star League-era Newgrange class yardship. This class of vessel is specifically engineered as a mobile ship repair and construction facility, featuring a massive unpressurized repair bay. The Fastlane can accommodate and service starships with a displacement of up to 2 million tons. Between 2882 and 2949, Comstar constructed 6 Fastlane-class yardships, which played a crucial role in maintaining and repairing the Comstar fleet and supporting naval operations. Manufactured at the Clan Snow Raven shipyards located in the Lum system, the Corone-class destroyer was introduced in 2915 during the Golden Century. This class exemplified the evolving naval strategies of the clans, focusing on independent operations and raiding capabilities. Designed as a light raider, the Corone class was adept at executing deep penetration raids into rival clan territories. It featured an onboard hyperpulse generator, allowing it to function as a support and communication vessel for larger naval formations when necessary. While the bulk of the clans were content using old SLDF vessels, the naval-focused clan Snow Raven were not, and they sought to produce something designed to take full advantage of the advances developed by the clans. Launched in 2932, the Nightlord-class battleship represents a significant advancement in clan naval technology. The Nightlord was conceived as a pinnacle of clan military innovation, with superior armor, firepower, and cargo capacity compared to the Star League-era McKenna-class battleship. The Nightlord commonly serves as a task force command ship within Clan Tumans, reflecting its power and importance. The Dante-class frigate was developed at the request of Primus Hollingsjorg in 2941 by Comstar. This heavily automated class was intended as an interim solution while Comstar undertook the refitting of ex-SLDF warships and trained new crews for the Comstar Guards and Militia. The Dante-class frigate was designed to address immediate operational needs during the early years of these organizations, providing a stopgap measure until more comprehensive fleet solutions could be implemented. The York-class warship emerged from extensive refits of a Riga II-class vessel that were part of Alexander Kerensky's Exodus fleet. By 2947, the first new York-class was produced, marking a transition to renewed warship construction after the political century. This new class quickly gained popularity with Clan Star Adder, who utilized the York class to achieve a decisive victory in a trial against Clan Nova Cat for control of a battlemech factory at Brim. The Molnia-class corvette represented Clan Wolf's initial venture into the design and manufacture of warships. Aimed at developing a self-sufficient production capability, the Molnia was intended to provide the clan with crucial experience in naval construction and to enhance its competitive edge. Despite these objectives, the Molnia class did not achieve success, failing to meet the anticipated standards of performance and reliability. The Fredaza-class corvette, named after the notorious Star League Defense Force Commanding General Icolor Fredaza, is recognized as the smallest warship produced by the clans during this period. As a picket ship, the Fredaza class was part of a cohort of small vessels developed around the same time, including the Corone and Molnia. By the onset of Operation Revival, the Fredaza class remained one of a few comparable small warship classes still in use by Clan Tumans. The Peregrine-class corvette, developed by Clan Jade Falcon, was driven by both pride and practical consideration. This class was designed with an exclusive emphasis on cost efficiency, which resulted in a vessel that was vulnerable to aggressors and ineffective against well-prepared defenders. The Peregrine class was utilized primarily for exploration missions and as the central unit of small task forces. The Liberator-class cruiser evolved from the SLDF's Avatar-class heavy cruiser, a design originating from the old hegemony. As the clans prepared for their invasion of the innersphere, these ships were reactivated, upgraded, and some were renamed. Significant upgrades included the replacement of conventional armor with ferrocarbide armor, offering 50% greater protection while preserving cargo capacity. In regards to warship, the appearance of the clans was the biggest shock and change in overall strategy since Operation Exodus. Who would have thought? Suddenly, the ancient warships were no longer dreadful legends, but a very real danger that forced the House Lords to act. During the original clan invasion, Operation Revival, they had only played a very minor role. The traditions of Zalbringen, that determined the military doctrine of the clans, led them to prefer battle between mech forces against all other types of engagement. While numerous inside the attacking clan Tumans, the main purpose of the warships was again to ferry the more entitled mech stars and galaxies to the field of battle. A behavior that was of course greatly facilitated by the complete lack of innersphere warships. The only incident that broke this mold was the destruction of the combined city of Edo, located on the planet Turtle Bay. The invading clan Smoke Jaguar was entangled in a vicious fight with a local resistance, centered around the Yakuza. At the 7th of May, 3050, one command of these Yakuza managed to free Hohiro Korita, a direct successor to the office of coordinator, from captivity. To do so, they caused a mass escape of prisoners and an open uprising in the urban center. Enraged by this, the Smoke Jaguars decided to destroy the city as an example. We do not know how many warships participated. The only one recorded is the SX-2 class Sabercat. But the result is clear. Edo was completely obliterated, and millions of people lost their lives. A chilling and harsh reminder what warships are able to do. Oh, and before you ask, the ship that took Tyra Mirabok's Shilon to the bridge was the Direwolf, a Sovietsky Soyuz-class battlecruiser. It is still in active service with Clan Wolf. The impact of warships was only fully felt when the successor states started to rebuild their armed forces after the clans had their match with Comstar. They were completely aware that they had to utilize everything at their disposal to have a chance against a renewed conquest. And as it turned out, a navy buildup was even more important than the mech force. You have to understand that the superiority of the clanners was most strongly felt in mech combat. The technological edge and the quality of training were so much ahead of the inner sphere that it was almost impossible to bridge this gap in time. However, it was very well possible to replace class with mass, to counter omnimechs with tanks, infantry, and higher numbers of innersphere battlemechs. So this fight was dedicated to the industry and recruitment. But in space, the situation was much more different. The aerospace fighters of the sphere had bested the clans time and time again. Although even more genetically engineered than the Mechwarriors, the ASF pilots of the clans disappointed. And so did their fighters, full with the most advanced technology possible, yet still no match for free-birth filth in derelict vessels. In fact, the clans just had a single advantage to achieve space dominance: warships. Every one of the great houses, therefore, started to research, design, and build new warships. After centuries of neglect, they were expensive was no longer an argument. The Federated Commonwealth, the Union of Lyran Commonwealth and Federated Sons, as well as the Draconis Combine, were both very clear in their priorities. They needed ships to oppose the clans in space and to transport their armies into battle against them. The Free Worlds League and the Capellan Confederation only viewed the clans as secondary threat. Nonetheless, they had to build up to check the growing naval power of a FATCOM. But where was the knowledge to build these vessels coming from? Well, first we have to keep in mind that the discovery of the Hell Memory Core in 3028 had started a technological renaissance. After 25 years of research and additional discoveries, a sizable amount of knowledge had been restored. And second, a well-educated helper was getting active. Comstar. Both of them. After the victory on Tukayit that stopped the clan invasion, Pre-Centaur Marshal Anastasius Vogt went mad with power. He broke his oaths, murdered Primus Waterly, and turned the noble and blessed order into a tool to be used by the House Lords. This also included the opening of the storages and construction yards controlled by Comstar. Suddenly, compact CF drives were again available, and Kurita and Steiner Davian took full use of this exciting new offering. At the same time, those who stayed true to the teachings of Jerome Blake were driven into exile. Taking a new name from their sacred text, the word of Blake had to rely on the goodwill and compassion of their friends to start anew. To the blessing of all, they found these things in the heart of Thomas Merrick. To repay kindness with kindness, they eagerly helped the Free Worlds League to start their own warship program. Soon the help was extended to the allied Capellan Confederation. This thriving triple cooperation allowed all involved to create their own Blackwater navies, so that they would no longer be defenseless against their rapacious enemies. As a result of these developments, the 3050s and 3060s saw the creation of several new designs and the revival of warships. The Leviathan class was conceived in 3044 under the direction of a clan Ghost Bear Khans, Nornien Tseng and Ursula Jorgensen. Designed to be the largest warship ever built, the Leviathan was intended to surpass the size and capabilities of a McKenna-class battleship. A few years later, it became evident that the Ghost Bear scientist cast could not complete the Leviathan project independently. Consequently, the Ghost Bears turned to the Snow Ravens, known for their expertise in warship construction. However, after the Battle of Tukayit and the ensuing shift in focus to the Warden cause by Khan Björn Jorgensen, the project was redirected. The incomplete Leviathan class was repurposed as a heavy transport to facilitate the relocation of a clan to their inner sphere occupation zone, with modifications made to enable cargo transport, while still preserving their fearsome appearance. The Conqueror-class battlecruiser was developed by Clan Snow Raven as a carrier escort to support the Ghost Bear's Leviathan-class battleship. The design of a Conqueror class was based on the hulls of a Star League-era Kimagure-class pursuit cruiser, 6 of which had been part of Operation Exodus. Following the Battle of Tokayit, the Snow Ravens withdrew from the Leviathan construction project. Despite this, they decided to complete the 2 Conqueror-class vessels already in progress. Both of them continued to serve Clan Snow Raven well into the 150s. The RX-78 class, known as the Fox, was initially designed between 3050 and 3051 and was intended to be the first new warship deployed by any innersphere state in over 2 centuries. However, the project faced repeated delays and disruptions, including multiple terrorist attacks, preventing the first Fox from entering service until 3057. Once operational, the Fox class became one of the most widely produced warship designs in the innersphere, with over 20 units built for the Federated Commonwealth. The Kyushu class frigate was developed by the Draconis Combine as part of the first generation of post-clan invasion warships. This design was based on the Robinson class transport of the Federated Sons, 2 of which had been captured during the early succession wars. The Kyushu class was intended primarily for transport and defense within invasion task forces. Constructed using parts sourced from various locations across the Combine, the Kyushu class represented a significant component of the Combine's re-emerging warship fleet. The Agamemnon-class cruiser was a key component of the Free Worlds League's military Navy. Positioned between the Black Lion class and Sovietsky Soyuz class warship in terms of design and capability, the Agamemnon class featured a weapons loadout comparable to that of the Black Lion class. However, it has less armor than the Sovietsky Soyuz, relying on speed and maneuverability to avoid damage rather than heavy protection. The Impavido class destroyer is a collaborative effort involving the Free Worlds League, the Word of Blake, and the Capellan Confederation. In response to the threat posed by the Federated Commonwealth, the Impavido was mainly designed to counter the Fox-class corvette. The Free Worlds League was responsible for constructing the hulls, while the Capellan Confederation provided the critical interplanetary drives. But it was the technical expertise of the Word of Blake that made this joint venture possible. Aware that the alliance with the Free Worlds League that gave him the Pavido was only temporary, Chancellor Sun Tzu Liao initiated the development of an independent warship program for the Capellan Confederation. This program relied entirely on Capellan resources for warship production. With covert assistance from the Word of Blake, the Capellan Confederation upgraded the Necromo shipyards to enable the complete construction of warships on site. The Feng Huang-class cruiser became the first warship built entirely within the Capellan Confederation in the post-Clan War era. The Inazuma-class corvette, named after the Japanese word for lightning, was another component of the Draconis Combine's revitalized warship fleet. This class is engineered to deliver rapid, powerful strike against both dropships and other warships by leveraging high-thrust engines and a lithium fusion battery. The design puts a priority on firepower and speed, leaving minimal space for armor and crew accommodations. The corvette's compact frame is densely packed with weaponry to maximize its offensive capabilities. The Tatsumaki-class destroyer is another design introduced by the Draconis Combine in its new fleet. Primarily created for the escort of jump ship fleets, the Tatsumaki is equipped with a comprehensive array of short-range anti-fighter and capital-grade weaponry, aligning it with other destroyers of comparable size. The class design emphasizes capabilities suited for protecting and supporting larger fleet elements. The Cestino-class corvette one of the smallest and lightest warships in the clan invasion era, was developed by the Free Worlds League. Designed for versatility, the Zechdino can function as an independent convoy raider, picket ship, or escort vessel. The class' initial prototype performed exceptionally well during mock battles, leading to the construction of additional 10 vessels. A significant number of Zechdinos in the Free Worlds fleet were later acquired by Blakist defectors or sleeper agents. The Eagle-class frigate was designed by Ilium Naval Engineering to serve as an escort for the Terra-class carrier. Operating in pairs, Eagles are intended to protect the Terra by intercepting threats before they reach the carrier. The frigate is equipped with large engines that provide 30% greater speed than the Terra, along with a range of anti-ship and anti-aerospace fighter defenses. Each Eagle also carries a squadron of 6 aerospace fighters for additional point defense and reconnaissance. The class includes an HPG system staffed by Word of Blake technicians. The Terra-class carrier was designed to achieve aerospace fighter dominance for the Free Worlds League military. Capable of carrying 4 regiments of fighters, the Terra class excels in maintaining control over entire solar systems. The carrier emphasizes crew comfort, with each officer being provided a private stateroom and enlisted members housed into a 2-person compartment. The vessel includes spacious graph decks to support crew health during long deployments. The Terra class remained in service into the 32nd century, with one vessel maintained by the Raven Alliance and another taken by the Blakists, 2 parts unknown. Initial designs for the Avalon-class warship were developed in the early 3050s, but production did not commence until later due to financial constraints resulting from the clan invasion. The construction of the Avalon was undertaken by a joint operation between Katil Shipworks and Yara Shipbuilders at the James McKenna shipyards above Katil, with the first keel laid in early 3057. Due to ongoing advancements and rediscoveries in naval technology, the Avalon class was reclassified as a missile cruiser by the AFFC Admiralty and the Department of the Quartermaster. The Kirishima-class cruiser represents the most heavily armed warship design in the Draconis Combined Fleet. The class puts the emphasis on offensive firepower and speed over armor and cargo capacity. The Kirishima class outperforms older Star League Defense Force cruisers, such as the Sovietsky Soyuz, still in service with Clan Tumans. It is equipped with advanced weaponry, a lithium fusion battery system, and a significantly higher thrust capacity, making it a formidable asset in the Draconis Combine's naval arsenal. The Mjolnir-class battlecruiser, the largest warship produced in the innersphere since the original Star League, was initially conceived as a light cruiser, but the Lion Alliance, following its secession from the Federated Commonwealth, recognized the need for a vessel capable of countering the Avalon-class cruisers built by their former allies. So the Mjolnir design was revised to meet this requirement, resulting in a vessel that provided a substantial moral boost to the Lion Navy. The Mjolnir class is notable for its impressive size and combat capabilities, designed to challenge nearly any warship in existence. The Suffren-class destroyer marked Comsto's first new warship design since the Dante class in 2941. Developed in response to the need for a vessel unfamiliar to Clan Tumans, the Suffren class was intended to bolster the Comguard's naval capabilities. The design aimed to provide a distinct and effective addition to Comsto's fleet, leveraging advancements in warship technology to enhance its operational effectiveness. The Leviathan II heavy battleship was developed by Clan Ghostbear as an upgrade to their existing Leviathan heavy transports. This transition, carried out at the shipyards orbiting Origine, was intended to symbolize the establishment of a Ghost Bear dominion. To fight against the clans, the houses of the innersphere had come together and formed the Second Star League, an alliance to undo the devastation of the clan invasion. Hopeful, the Word of Blake took steps to support this endeavor. They liberated Terra from the traitors supporting Vogt in 3058 during Operation Odysseus. They protected countless worlds against the madness engulfing the surrounding space, and turned the Chaos March into the Word of Blake Protectorate. They had invested heavy in research and build-up to give the sphere the necessary tools to crush the clans. But it was all for naught. During the Fourth Witting Conference in November 3067, on the Lyran capital world of Tharkad, the House Lords decided to abandon all pretense of unity and to return to their old power games. They dissolved the Second Star League. The Word of Blake could just be witness. And then, the Tharkad-class warship LCS Invincible showed up. Originally, the Word of Blake planned to present it as a gift to the Lyrans, but given the new circumstances, it would have to play a different role. The warship took position over Tharkad City, and after Archon Peter Steiner-Davian finally refused to reconsider his position, it started the orbital bombardment. During one of the many salvos, it destroyed the main nuclear reactor powering the city, spreading radioactive fallout across the surface. The sacred struggle of the blessed Word of Blake against the darkness had begun. Just like the fall of the First Star League caused an era of war and destruction, so did the fall of the Second Star League. The fighting would rage everywhere, not only between the Word of Blake and the House Lords, but very often inside the states itself. The warships built to protect the people from the clans would ally with these savages and turn their guns against their own people. The fleets built by the followers of Blake would answer by unleashing every weapon available against their opponents. Again, whole planets would be turned into wastelands, and warships wrecked each other in space. The horrors of the First Succession War returned, aided by the same foolishness and ambition that had caused the ruin 300 years before. Most, but not all, of the warships present before the war were destroyed. This was true for the Clan Tumans and the successor states. The ships of the Word of Blake Navy that survived escaped to places unknown, taking substantial parts of the ground forces with them. Just like the SLDF with Operation Exodus, they became a specter, lurking in the depths of space. But the warships as concept survived, because someone from outside had made its new home in the near periphery. After 3060, Clan Snowraven would begin to see how little they would gain from staying in their clan homeworlds, so they decided to embark on a bold expedition to the innersphere. During their reconnaissance in the near periphery, the Snowravens encountered an Old Worlds Alliance jump ship. Confident in their prowess, they initiated a trial of position, wagering a Titan-class dropship. However, the skilled Alliance pilots managed to defeat the Snowravens in an unexpected turn of events. Impressed by the Alliance capabilities, the Snowravens wisely extended a hand of friendship, leading to a strategic alliance. This partnership granted Snowraven vessels access to Old World's research stations, in exchange for their expertise in refurbishing an old Stalag-era naval base at Rebel. The inner space initially appeared welcoming to the Snowravens, until the treacherous Draconis Combine betrayed them by destroying a Snowraven vessel during a routine recharge. This vessel, The white cloud was a symbol of Raven excellence, having once triumphed in the 2736 Martial Olympiad. In response, the Snow Raven seized several pirate worlds, including Rezek's Hole and Farstar, which they strategically used to harass Cretan interest. The Word of Black's Jihad ravaged the innersphere, providing the Snow Ravens with a perfect opportunity to strike back at the weakened Draconis Combine. Despite being depleted, the brave, swift-wing Naval Assault Star launched successful raids on Inif, Tabayama, and Gallaudet 5, where they destroyed the Cretan Kyushu-class vessel. Tragically, on January 5th, 3069, the swift-wing Naval Assault Star was ambushed and destroyed in the Ramora system by the Draconis Combine. The Snow Ravens, undeterred, launched a powerful counteroffensive in May 3069, capturing the border worlds of Bundingen, Gublat, Schmiermek, Valentina, and Wieso from the Combine. In June, a Raven naval star arrived in the Gallaudet system and initiated a devastating orbital bombardment, targeting key military installations. The Snow Ravens issued a stern warning to the civilian castes of Gallaudet, allowing them a week to evacuate. On June 16, the Ravens intensified their bombardment, strategically destroying every city on the planet. The destruction surpassed the infamous Cantaris massacre, leading to the collapse of Gallaudet. Despite this adversity, the Snow Ravens secured control of the Catribel shipyards, one of the few facilities capable of producing new warships in the innersphere. This victory was marked by the production of a CSR Mitchell Avila during a time when jumpship production sites were in sharp decline. The Catribel shipyards became a critical asset for the Snow Raven warship fleet, providing a base for maintenance and refurbishment after years of active and successful deployment. Back on the clan homeworlds, Clan Snow Raven faced a trial for their justified war against the Draconis Combine. ilclan Brett Andrews, driven by bias, accused the Ravens of succumbing to innersphere corruption, a claim that was convenient for their rivals, the Steel Reapers, led by Brett Andrews. Consequently, the Snow Ravens were unfairly adjured from clan space, with their holdings quickly contested by other clans. After Clan Snow Raven lost their holdings and was abjured from clan space, they would seek refuge with their allies in the Old Worlds Alliance. Seeking the similarities and benefits between the two factions, they formed the fruitful relationship that would result in the merging of a Raven alliance after the war had ended. Ahmed Dubois, visit Atharats. Atharats 3111. So, what is the situation for warships, according to the latest reports? Are they again extinct? Did they reconquer their rightful place in the arsenals of the sphere? Well, not exactly, for both accounts. The decades following the disappearance of the Word of Blake were quite diverse. The clan homeworlds had torn themselves asunder in the devastating wars of Reaving. Every contact between the Kerensky cluster and the inner sphere was broken off. What happened to the clans remaining in the periphery and their warships is unknown to us. Terra, the cradle of mankind, was under the brutal occupation of a self-styled Republic of the Sphere. Proving its lack of understanding, this regime advocated disarmament and ignorance, causing a new dark age. But all this should fall apart then Grey Monday hit. Around the 7th of August, 3132, unknown perpetrators disabled over 80% of the Hyperpulse generator network. This communication blackout led to 2 decades of warfare that crippled many realms and finally led to the conquest of Terra by Clan Wolf and the proclamation of the ilclan. The fleets of these damaged states do have warships, but their numbers are truly pitiful. Yet, at least some of them do not need numbers to be intimidating. The Leviathan III class heavy battleship is notable for being the only new warship class constructed within the innersphere since the end of the 31st century. Developed by Clan Ghost Bear during the late Dark Age, the construction of the Leviathan III began in the 3130s, conducted in secrecy following the Grey Monday events. The design of the Leviathan III reflects the insights gained from the intense combat of the Jihad era, emphasizing the need for warships to be safeguarded from concentrated attacks by smaller craft due to their high expenses. The Leviathan III continues the tradition of its predecessors by featuring exceptional heavy armor and robust weaponry. Warships are not LosTech, but they are not the deciding weapons like they were during the golden days of the Terran Hegemony. They are the symbol that a nation has reached great power status, and if they make an appearance, you can be assured that it's a nasty surprise for everyone caught on the other side of the battle space. And maybe this is the best for them. They are the ace in the sleeve, the big bad, the last word of lords and khans. It is a position befitting to the true kings of war machines. And if you yearn for more of them, if you want to see not ships but fleets, then you can always go to the Raven Alliance. The yards, factories, and forges above Quatre Belles are busy, and the white of Clan Snow Raven's warships blinks between the stars. It's almost like back then, in the good old days.